Welcome back to episode 26 of Daily Drives, and today I'm talking about Army basic training. So my experience with the Army and their basic training was I came from the Air Force to the Army as an E5, and I was switching to a different job title. So I went from firefighting in the Air Force to infantry in the Army. And so the first thing that they do is with it's called the Blue to Green program. First thing they do is you go through a warrior transition course, which at the time they held out in White Sands, New Mexico. And I don't think they do it anymore, but at the time, anyone that was prior service that was making a transition to a different branch of service would go through this 3 or 4 week course out there. And it's basically just the real basic fundamentals of everything that entails the Army. So learning about the history of the Army and the rank structure and soldiering skills, so like land navigation, basic marksmanship. Surprisingly enough, they went over a few other different weapon systems while I was there. So they went over 249. They didn't do 50 cal or Mark 19, but they did 240 and 249. They did grenades, the 203 grenade launcher, and then of course M4. So interesting experience. It's good to have that little bit of background before I actually went on to combat arms training for the infantry. But yeah, did 3 weeks there, and then I go into Fort Benning, which is where the infantry has their they call it OSET, one station unit training, which is basically basic training combined with AIT, or the technical aspect. They call it tech school in the Air Force. I think it's advanced individual training. So anyways, it's all lumped into one thing. It was 13 weeks at Fort Benning. Coming in as prior service, they tell you that you're not going to have to go through the basic training portion of it, which is the first 8 weeks. But like a lot of things that recruiters and people like that tell you, they lie sometimes. Doesn't always turn out the way that they say it will. So in this case, I showed up to Fort Benning, came in at I think week 4 or week 5 of the basic training phase of it. So they had already been through the hardest part of basic training is always the first 2 or 3 weeks of it. That's when they give you that initial shock, and trying to tear you down and then rebuild you from the ground up. So in those first few weeks, that's when there's the most yelling and there's the most chaos and confusion and stuff like that. But eventually you start to figure things out and things start to smooth out and get at least a little bit easier. So I show up, of course, being an E5 already, the drill sergeant put me in charge of the entire platoon, and a platoon in the basic training is a lot bigger than what you'd experience in the operational Army. There are probably 60 or 70 people in this platoon, and again, you got to think that these people are essentially brand new to the military. They've been in for 3 or 4 weeks already, so they don't have a whole lot of military bearing. They're still learning a lot of that, and as an NCO already coming into that, the drill sergeants only give you a certain amount of power, so they limit what you can do as a leader there, because again, you're still a student, you're still learning yourself. So go through basic training. A lot of it is physical, especially with the infantry and the combat arms stuff. So there's a lot of ruck marching, and they build it up. They don't just throw you out there and tell you to do a 20-mile ruck march or anything like that. They start real low with I think the first one was like 2 miles, and they increase by I think like 2 miles every time. So the next one is 4 miles and 6 miles and so on. So they allow your body to acclimate to it. They're not going to break you off right at the beginning there. So besides that, a lot of it is the tactics and techniques that you use within the infantry. So you graduate week 8, they do a little ceremony, and in other non-OSET or non-combat arms units, you'll leave basic training, and then from there you go on to your AIT, which in a lot of cases is going to be at a different base. And in those instances, from talking with other people, you start to gain a little bit more freedom as you get to your AIT. But with Fort Benning and the infantry training, since it's all at one station, it pretty much just rolls over into the next phase, which is your AIT portion. But you're still treated the same, so it's like an extended 13-week basic training. So after you graduate the basic training portion of it, you move into the advanced training. That's when you do you get a lot of the training that you're going to use as you get to your first unit. So you start to be introduced to clearing houses. You go over different battle drills, such as reacting to fire or indirect fire, and what you would do and what your squad would do in those scenarios. And then you do the more advanced weaponry. So just the basic training portion, I think, was just M4. And then after that, you start going out to the ranges and you get experience with a lot of these other different weapon systems. So you have your Mark 19 automatic grenade launcher, 50 cal automatic machine gun, 249 saw, 240, 203 grenade launcher. I don't remember if they did the frag grenades there or not, but you get exposure to all these other weapons that you'll encounter as you get to your unit. And then they do a lot of different scenarios. So you do your shoot houses, and then they start to build on these different skills and mesh them together. So, for example, you might ruck march out to the site. You'll set up a OP or observation post, and then you'll send a team in, do a recon, come back with that intel, and then assault a village, looking for some type of target or something like that. So that's one of the final exercises that they do. There's a lot of, I guess you'd call it, camping outside. So you're in the field a lot on the infantry side of things, sleeping outside, sleeping bag, and this little mattress that they call a piss pad. But yeah, 13 weeks there. It was good training, and a lot of that you learned there is stuff that you're actually going to use once you get to your unit. So whether it's with the weapons, or whether it's going through these scenarios, or doing shoot house training, all of that on the infantry side is stuff that you're going to do once you get to your unit. So 13 weeks basic training and AIT portion for infantry. Good training. Coming in as a leader already, it's a little bit frustrating that they limit you, but you're still expected to lead all of these people. But again, great training.